Welcome to Preparing for the Unexpected. Today, I'd like to talk about cyber threats based on the geopolitical crises in the world right now. And I'd like to welcome back to the show Steve Hindle, CEO at Simple Security. Steve, welcome back.
Good to be here, Alex. Great to talk about something topical.
And I'm going to ask you the basic question. With geopolitical crises right now, what should we be thinking about when it comes to cyber threats?
I think it's really great that we're having this conversation. I'm actively what we do here at Simple is we defend organizations from cyber threats. That's all we do, and in doing so, we're seeing an increased proliferation of very sophisticated threats being launched against businesses of all sizes, not just big businesses. It's more of a carpet bombing approach. Just try and impact as many things as you can, and if something sticks, then you've got that business disruption component that I think we talked about when we talked about ransomware previously. But what we're seeing out there is now the battleground now of global conflict has shifted. It is much less about what you would commonly refer to previously as boots on the ground, right? Troop-based involvement in warfare. It pivoted away from that into air warfare. If you could command control of the skies, right, then you could dominate the battlefield through bombing and targeted strikes, either through manned aircraft or through drones. And that is now the primary warfare is air-based warfare. But then we're seeing the battleground extend into cyberspace without making it sound too trendy, right? We're seeing that absolute shift into digital attack footprint, and organizations are being targeted by what we refer to as nation state level entities. That means it's a criminal organization, if you will, that is backed by a foreign government or entity. So you can imagine that if you're throwing the entire weight of a country's resources behind a cyber attack, that's why we refer to it as a nation state level attack. It is sophisticated, it is powerful, it is large scale. And this is now where we're seeing actively, we're in the middle of March, and we're seeing a lot of threats that have been launched because of the Iran conflict. And because of the conflict and the impact that this has had across the Middle East and North Africa, we're seeing cyber attacks being launched against Western or European-based countries and entities, just as much as we're seeing physical attacks. In fact, now, because you can't reach, if you're an Iranian entity, you don't have the necessary reach to be able to have a traditional warfare response to, say, America from Iran, right? We're not talking about terrorism necessarily. We're talking about warfare. So what do? You shift the battleground to something you can reach, which is digital, which is internet-based. And now we're seeing Iranian threats. A medical organization called Stryker was impacted by an Iranian threat group tied to an Iran government-sponsored entity. It compromised and crippled that organization's infrastructure. This is becoming more and more common because these attacks are now being launched broadly. So even smaller businesses can be caught up in these nation-state sophisticated attacks that are occurring through cyber attacks. They're occurring because they're targeting infrastructure that you may rely on that is hosted in the cloud. They're not targeting you because they know you're an American company or a British company or a French company or a Turkish company. They're not targeting you for that reason. They're targeting your real estate, your internet real estate, which is housed in that country. And if they're targeting that, they're doing it on a carpet bombing approach. Attack everybody, everywhere, as much as we can. And in doing so, the impacts that we have, right, will then be resonated down across that infrastructure. So Stryker as a medical device company targeted because they were American. And then again, that means that the foreign nation state who is at war with the United States will then have that impact that they can't defend against. The government is not defending private companies like you would defend your international assets. We're really responsible. We as private companies are responsible for defending ourselves, or for paying organizations and MSSPs, managed security providers, to defend us against these threats. And that's what we're seeing now out there in the world. We're seeing a lot of these targeted threats that are being launched against international entities or against the cloud focused in those countries. And the victims, just like you have civilian casualties in war, the smaller businesses, even big businesses, right? Businesses of all sizes are becoming victims of cyber warfare as part of this conflict that's going on in the Middle East.
And then that becomes, excuse me, that becomes economic impacts eventually, and community impacts, depending on what it is. But
Yeah, of
it seems
course.
like long gone are the days of trench warfare, where you dug your trenches and shot at each other.
Yeah.
Completely different world now.
Yeah, completely. And for regardless of the size of your business, if you have that level of business interruption or impact to your infrastructure that stops you from serving the needs of your customers and generating revenue, you generally have insurance claims. We talked previously about ransomware. So if there is any requirement, it's a business decision. If you're paying a ransom to stop business impact or prevent data theft or anything similar, then you're generally speaking, as an organization, you may be claiming that on insurance. It's a loss, right? You're impacting and you're mitigating business loss through an insurance claim. The problem we're now seeing because of this conflict is those attacks that may result in business loss, that may result in insurance claims, if they're being launched by Iran. Iran is an international sanctioned entity. So your insurance is not going to cover you. And this is something that organizations are finding out the hard way. If your cyber event can be in any way tied or linked to a nation state level threat from the likes of North Korea or Iran as sanctioned entities, or Russia, or if it can be tied to an act of cyber warfare, you may have exclusions in your policy that state we are not going to cover acts of war. We are not going to cover acts or items or losses as a result of a sanctioned entity. If you decide to pay that entity, you're violating international sanctions by giving money to fund terrorism or warfare. And so organizations have to be very, very careful now. Take the guidance from your insurance broker, work with your insurance broker to say, hey, I really need to understand the exclusions in my policy in light of the global conflict and the cyber risks that we're facing. Your broker will inherently help you understand that. We are often consulted by our customers to examine their insurance binders to make sure that those clauses are not at risk. There are also AI clauses being built into insurance now as well. That as a result of a misuse of AI tooling, often cyber insurers won't cover you if you've misused or misapplied AI tooling in your environment, resulting in some form of data compromise or data loss. So my recommendation, Alex, for your listeners and viewers is take a good look at your insurance, even your general liability insurance, your E&O insurance. Take a good look at your insurance. Find out and understand where you may have gaps in coverage or exclusions from coverage in light of the cyber threats that we're facing geopolitically in this time. It's a very dangerous time for businesses.
And that's the perfect spot to end this episode. Steve, thank you so much for sharing your insights again. I greatly appreciate it.
Always here for you, Alex. Definitely.